welcome. We're really glad you've joined us. You're watching the program Youth Issues. It's a program in which we discuss topics that are truly relevant, things that really matter. Or, well, maybe you disagree with us, but in order to do that, you have to be informed enough. So stay with us to actually pass judgment at the end of the program. My name is Gert, and today in the studio I have with me Christian and Greg. And the topic we're covering is something that every one of us has probably battled to a degree. It's the topic of parents. Now, before we get to the discussion, Miriam has shared a couple of thoughts on the matter. Let's have a look.
Issue of the day. Our parents, mum and dad, mi madre, mi papa, mamma, papa, whichever language you want it to be in. We all love them, but at the same time, they can be kind of annoying, right? I mean, you could be enjoying yourself, having the time of your life. Bang, bang, it's the room. I know you want it, bang, bang. I'm not for you. I'll let you have it. Cue the parents. Love, can you come help me in the kitchen? Hello? We all know what happens next. You need it. Mom, you just ruined the best part of the song. What? I can't hear. Hang on. Let me take those from you. I need you to help me in the kitchen. That is your chore, yes? I love you, honey. Thank you so much. No, you won't be getting any money for this. This is a sign of you loving me. Fine. They boss us about, they tell us what to do, but at the same time, we love them, and we have to respect our parents. What? Mom, I'm making a video of parents.
So now we know what kind of ideas came to Miriam's head when she thought about the topic of parents and her relationship with her parents. Greg and Christian, what kind of ideas come to your heads when you think about your parents?
You go.
For me, parents are your sort of first port of call as a child and probably throughout the rest of your life. Because they're the ones that have experienced some of the things you have experienced. And as a result, you know, we look up to them and we ask for advice. But obviously, you know, as we get older, sometimes we think, you know, our own inklings are a little bit wiser than our parents, but, you know, that's not necessarily true all the time. How about you, Christian?
It's difficult because, you know, as you say, in the beginning you're kind of asking them for everything, and then you reach the age where you just disagree just because they're your parents. So it turns out to be this love-hate relationship thing. You have those, you want to do something and then you have your parents. So sometimes I remember feeling like driving a car with the parking brakes on. And sometimes you just want to, you know, disconnect those parking brakes for a little while and just go.
Well, this also came out from Miriam's video, actually, that we just saw, that you love them, but at the same time, they really find ways how to get on your nerves, right? But thinking back before this transition into, the rebellious phase, or we find that they're no longer the go-to people for us. Before that, can you recall any of these essential memories that you had of your parents before you actually started rebelling?
There are many things that you can really, like, if you were scared when you were a child and your mom or dad came kind of running to you and, what is it? And you could they would comfort you and they would give you this logic explanation that it's nothing to be afraid about, it's nothing to be scared about, it's okay. That in that sense, you kind of, oh, they do know everything. They do actually know everything.
They have the solutions.
Yeah, they have the solutions. I have the problems, but my solution is walking there.
Yeah, for me, probably one of my fondest memories is when we as a family drove back to my dad's parents' place in Ukraine. So going on those sort of like road trips with them, I don't know, it was a great time as a family, and like my parents, they were sort of together, and it's all exciting, you sort of like drive through Paris. And yeah, for me, it was like going on sort of like family activities and stuff like that. And as you get older and you go on your own walks of life, I think those are the moments that you really do hold on to most.
My most favourite memories come from Friday evenings, because this was kind of the end of the working day, right? And family would gather around the table, and my parents made a special point of then actually being together. The entire family was there. We would have one of the dinners of everyone actually being present, and occasionally it could also turn into a dispute or something. But these were the rare cases. Most of the time, it was a complete sense of peace and safety. I think, kind of time out from everything else and just being there around the table with people that you cared about. And to me, with this memory, what always associate is music, because my dad always would put Friday evenings, music went on. Like, he listens to a lot of music, but I can always, like, when I think about my family and my parents, then I hear like his CDs in the background, and they shaped me a lot. So yeah, I guess those are the memories from way back when. And then the winds of change come. Right?
Oh yes, they did.
So did they come hard for you?
Well, I think for me, something even now I do, in a sense, battle with when it comes to my parents is being independent. Obviously, your parents, I don't know, sometimes they sort of want to still keep a bit of a hold on you. I think there's just that attachment that we all have, and I understand that. But as a young person, you're full of energy. You want to be independent. You want to go sort of do your own thing and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, I sort of neglect that sometimes. That relationship with my parents, in the sense that I feel independent. I feel like I can make decisions based on the facts that are sort of given to me. But the one thing that I'm neglecting is that experience and advice that my parents can give. And as a result, there are certain decisions that I've made, that were not wise.
Right.
And I've made because I feel, as I said, I can be independent, I can do what I want. But, if you're wise, you'd still listen to your parents. And I still struggle with that.
You're kind of like, you're wearing a white proper shirt and stuff. And have you ever actually had a truly rebellious phase?
Well,
You look like the kind of guy who,
The little good guy.
The good guy, yeah.
yeah, well, just me wearing a shirt like this, doesn't really reflect truly my character.
It's deceiving, you say.
Well, I think it's just an interpretation that you've had.
Right, I'm sorry.
But when I was younger, I would sort of wear a little bit more, I don't know, sort of street clothes a little bit, to be sort of like cool. And I'd try and be, I don't know, like a bit of a tough nut, if you know what I'm saying.
Did you have clashes with your parents?
Yeah, of course, because my dad being, being from Ukraine, he's a bit of a tough nut, and he doesn't really take it. If I'm trying to be sort of all hard and stuff like that, and try and standing up to him without any like sort of reasoning or justification, just because I'm going through that phase, it didn't really work with him, and as a result, we seriously clashed. But I guess now, I still sort of sometimes do like stand up to him, not to be like disrespectful, just because our 2 points of understanding are a little bit different. But I'm just sort of wearing I could be wearing like a shirt, for example, or just a t-shirt, but you wouldn't necessarily know that. I guess
Right,
that's
that's
something
true.
that we keep with our families. But you know, yeah, that's.
I don't know. I think everyone will clash with their parents. That's just how it works. But I know my mom and dad, they're very different especially when it comes to communication, because my mom is more this sitting down, explain, listen. She's all right with me now going to university and knowing that on certain things I know more than my mom. But my dad don't want to accept that, because he still, as you said, he still want this little boy that just says, yes, daddy, I'll do it. Yes, it's okay. Yeah, you're right. So now the clash is more about, I'm trying to reason with him. We have a cabin by the seaside, and we were building this little shed. And he said, this is how we should build it. And then I said, but couldn't we just try this instead? No, I know what I'm doing, but it won't work. Yes, it will. And he kind of forced his way through, and he built everything. And what happened the next day, it was bad weather. And we came out, and the whole thing had collapsed.
Oh,
And I just couldn't hold myself. So I said, that was what I said. And he just exploded. And then he gave me this lesson of, you think you know better than me, but you should still know that, I'm your father. I've done things like this before. And then in the end, I built the shed myself. And just to say, it still stands. So I think the fact that we rebel is also, it's not just hard for us trying to come through to our parents, but it's also very hard for them to accept that you're continuing in life. They go from the caretakers to just a support, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
And I think that's really hard.
I think that the point of reasoning as well is quite difficult, especially in sort of like my circumstances. And my dad had a completely different upbringing to me and culture as well. He was brought up in sort of Ukraine, and I was brought in England, and then going to a state school. There's loads of different sort of standards and morals that are out there because people have different upbringings and stuff. And it's actually quite tricky to sort of make friends with people. But I think that's one of the most important things in life, that we've, as young people, need to be able to find our own sort of moral grounds. But again, you can't just turn a blind eye to the experience that your parents have, because they've got those morals and they've got those sort of standards because of what they've experienced and because what they have seen in life that you haven't seen yet. So reasoning is quite key.
Yeah, so technically what we started with was you talked about this idea that the parents are the answers, the parents are the solution, and then we kind of realized that doesn't always work, right? Or even if it did work, I think the phase of actually starting to doubt them is a normal phase of your own identity creation, because we have to kind of, during different periods of your life, when somebody comes up to you, a really well-meaning neighbor, for example, this lady next door comes up to you and says, you remind me so much of your father, or you remind me so much of your mother, or to me they often came up and said, you're just like your mother. And my reaction to that kind of a compliment, occasionally I did see it as a compliment. When I was a child, of course, everybody wants to become like their parents. We look up to them and so on. And then there's this phase over which you can't say almost anything worse than that. It's like, no, I'm not like my mum. Like, how can you say that to me? How can you do that to me? And I had this really strong reaction to these compliments. Like, I had to struggle to stay polite in these situations. And then later, you actually slowly start realizing that, the more I look into the mirror, the more I see my mother there. And I actually am growing proud of that, like immensely proud. Even though, thanks to this rebellious phase, I have figured out that, maybe some sons build sheds better than their fathers, right? Or, you know, but it's not even, ultimately, it's not even about that. Our parents are so much more than just the answers, right?
Yeah. They are people after all, and that's the thing. When you're young, when you're a child, you see them as something infallible, something almost divine. When they say something, that's how it is. If it's almost as if they say the sky is pink. Yeah, the sky is pink. But to understand that, you know, they're not. To understand that you're both human, and that transaction there to go from they know everything till I know everything, it's a very, very weird, very odd thing to go through. But I think it's important for both parents and the youth to know that that's coming. My parents were always, they would argue that, and they would say to me, kind of before I entered my teenage years, you know, just you wait. In a couple of years' time, you will see us as the most stupid people. You'll be embarrassed. No, I won't, Mom. I won't, Dad. That's not going to happen.
It did.
It did. It did happen. And just the fact when they said, when I then rebelled, my mom would look at me and then she would say, hey, you know, you remember what I said a year ago? Now it's happening. And because she told me that, and she constantly reminded me of that,
it made it even worse, didn't it?
Just be quiet.
Yeah. The transition you said from them knowing everything to I know everything, and then actually onward from that to neither of us do. It's kind of a painful process, right? And there are so many cases in around us, and probably also in our lives, so many chances of this actually defining our role till the very end. Sometimes during these transitions, we say things on both sides and we do things on both sides that seem unmendable eventually. So, they kind of create an environment in which we're treading a dangerous ground of breaking the relationship to the degree of not being able to actually return to it ever again the same way it was. But it's so wonderful when we finally reach the kind of like the conclusion of,
it really is.
Okay, so he doesn't know how to build a shed, I don't know something that he does know, and it's perfectly fine.
Exactly.
And I love him all the more for not being able to build a shed, because now I can actually relate to my father, right?
But sometimes they try to impose their, and that again is very difficult for the parents, because they look at you as you're theirs, you're their little baby, and they want the best for you, and they think that the way they think is the best. But you know, when now I have my own place to live, and I have a system on everything. Like in the storage, I have like all the tools; they're perfectly aligned, everything like that. And if my dad comes to help me out with anything, everything is just mashed together in one big pile. And then he says, yeah, the hammer, the screwdriver, everything is in that pile. I don't want that. I don't want it that way. Yeah, but you know, now you have everything in one place. But then it's my place. I want it this way. But still, he is trying to be the father, teaching me how things should be. And so I think everything is counter-reaction from they know everything, then I know everything, then we're equal, and then the parents again will try to just teach you a little bit more. And then I think you'll always have this little tension between parents and children.
But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, they're doing it out of love. You know, they just want you to sort of to grow, to develop, and so on. But you know, as you said, sort of the parents sort of knowing everything. When you get older, you begin to realise how much your parents are truly just sort of normal humans. That they're not that sort of, you know, divine, I don't know, righteous sort of person in your life as you saw them as a kid, because they do make mistakes. and they do have flaws in them as well. And when you say, you know, that you pick up certain characteristics from your mother, for example, and you know people notice that, it's, you know, it can be great. Like my mum, for example, is just so loving, so caring and supportive, and my dad is, you know, he's just like, he's so organised. He's good with, you know, like his money. He just, you know, just gets the job done. He's the sort of, that's the type of guy that he is. And from that aspect, yeah, I aspire to take those sort of sets of characteristics and, you know, try and, you know, bring it into my life. But then equally, you know, along the lines of the flaws that you can pick up in your parents, sometimes it's a little bit hard to accept. And that's the point at which you begin to sort of question their accountability, whether they are truly the sort of the source of knowledge and guidance that you once thought they were in your life. And it's hard to accept.
It's all the more hard to accept that we're willing to embrace the fact that our friends are faulty because, I mean, they're kind of like us and we don't expect anything else from them. But knowing that once we have kind of elevated our parents to this superior position, which they did fulfill and work as in our lives back then, you know, always when you discover these things, it comes with a sense of disappointment. And through disappointment, you kind of add a flavor of bitterness to the entire situation. And it's so much more difficult to actually accept the fact that, I mean, as you said, the divine position, I mean, we imagine gods to be something else. So when they actually stumble and fall, then how do you mean? In addition to the fact that they stumble and fell, we also feel that such sense of disillusionment with the world and the way things are. So I think it's kind of important for us to always remember that when we are in this clash. I know it's very difficult to do, but always to try and see where they're coming from, and it can't be easy.
No.
I mean, letting go of something that used to be literally a part of them physically can't be easy.
We all know how difficult when there is something we really like. If just a stupid thing as a computer, when your computer breaks, what do you think? You panic because that's my computer. What do I do? How is it then for the parents to actually let go of the most precious thing they have? Yes, it doesn't break, but they know it's going into a whole new phase where they know that the result of this is that one day you will move out. And they will see you maybe every second week, or you can move far away and it's twice a year. And that feeling, as I just heard my mom and dad talk before I left to England, and my mom said, you know, it's in a way devastating, but it's beautiful at the same time. To see them grow up, but to let them go, is one of the hardest things that, as she said, it's one of the hardest things that I've done. And I think we should admire our parents for doing that. And yeah, when people look, when we talk like this, people would probably say that, yeah, you're adults, you're brainwashed, and this sounds stupid and everything. But it's trying to see the parents in the rebellious phase. My mom forced me to do that, and it really helped me through that phase because she forced me to see their side of the coin, saying it's hard for us too.
Yeah, and just like sometimes we never grow up, occasionally, you know, our parents are still struggling with issues that just hurt them and make them say and do things that they actually don't necessarily even mean. Or again, that these things don't define who they are and they don't ruin their love for us.
Again, it's interesting to note the fact that we admire our parents, and especially the point that they have to, you know, sort of let go of, you know, the babies that they brought up. And that's coming up for me quite soon. In 3 months, I'll be finishing off my exams, and in 6 months, I'll be going to university. And for my mum, that's, I don't know, it seems to be a little bit difficult for her because, you know, it's life. And parents love us.
Yeah.
And we've got to admire and respect that. We've got to show love as well back. Something that, you know, I've sort of struggled a little bit with is being really loving and affectionate, because that's the way my mum sort of communicates. And I respect that now, and I understand that. And I've become, you know, sort of more loving back towards her, because I appreciate her and I respect her. And I'm grateful for all the things that she's done for me. So.
Well, the thing with parents, sometimes they just get on our nerves. Sometimes they're the only people in the world who understand us. And it seems that there's a lot of struggle with the way things are and with the way things no longer are on both sides of it. Now, before we finish fully, Mervi is going to share some of her ideas about what it means for her to think about her parents.
Everything I had had as a child, and as to my parents, all that love and laughter and peace and security that I could enjoy, the fact that I could see my parents really, really deeply love each other, everything I really had taken for granted. And I remember it was only when I was a teenager that I started to realize, as I was looking around, that not everyone lived like us. Not everyone had a family as happy as ours. And now, years later, when I have lost one of my parents and I can't see and enjoy their love the way I was able to do throughout my childhood, it's even more special to me now. But one thing I know for sure, and that is I can always take the best I had in the past and take it with me to the future.
Today, Greg, Christian, Miriam, Mary, and we've been sharing a couple of thoughts related to parents, the way we interact with them. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Do let us know if you're going through any of these phases, or if you have any tips for those who are right now struggling with the parents. Write to us at info@lifeconnect.info. Thank you for staying with us.